The Galactic Treaty of Mutual Peace and Submission was meant to be the final page in Earth's aggressive history. The Council called it the paper that civilizes barbarians. It was offered with smiles, gilded promises, and veiled threats. Humans would be allowed access to hyperlanes, tech upgrades, and trade networks, but only under strict terms. Earth was to relinquish its autonomous fleet development, dismantle AI labs beyond Tier 3, and submit future diplomatic expansions for approval. "Compliance is peace," said the Vecri ambassador, and Earth complied. At first, the treaty was signed, celebrated, broadcast across the stars. Images of human leaders smiling with alien officials played on every planetary screen. The Council thought the matter settled, but they didn't notice the smirk. Not until it was too late. 3 weeks later, the first sign came, a quiet message broadcast from Earth. Only one sentence. Spoken live, no encryption, no deception. Just a human general standing before the treaty and tearing it in half. "We've read your conditions. We reject them." He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He smiled, and the galaxy took a sharp breath. The Council responded in panic. "This is madness. Earth just signed." They agreed to peace. But Earth never agreed to submission. The Council's peace was a leash with the word unity stamped on it. What they offered wasn't equality. It was control. The humans had signed the treaty not in ignorance, but in observation. You see, humanity had learned, not just to fight, not just to build, but to wait. They'd entered the galactic stage years behind. Technologically inferior, culturally dismissed, but they studied every weakness, every political maneuver, every empire that had risen and collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. And they knew the treaty wasn't about peace. It was a quiet conquest, slow, legal, surgical. Earth had no intention of being digested that way. So the moment the ink dried, the knives came out. The torn treaty was more than symbolism. It was bait. Within hours, surveillance satellites in orbit around Earth started vanishing. Council observation stations lost communication. Patrol ships assigned to monitor Earth's fleets were reassigned, nervous, because suddenly Earth had gone dark, and everyone knew what that meant. They were preparing. Council leadership panicked. The treaty had granted them access to Earth's internal infrastructure. Now, Earth was locking them out, digitally and physically. Even worse, human embassies across Council space began evacuating, not running, withdrawing methodically, silently, and without explanation. Each one left behind a single document. Treaties are forged in mutual trust. You brought conditions. We bring consequences. Some Council members demanded immediate retaliation, fleet mobilization, economic blockade, military pressure, but others hesitated because Earth hadn't launched a single missile, hadn't fired a shot, and yet something felt wrong. Not the anger of a species preparing for war, the confidence of a species that had already won. On the moon of Delcara, a joint research station exploded. The official report, an accident. Unofficial whispers said otherwise. The humans had pulled out 3 days before, left behind fake logs, false data trails, and a message buried in the blast chamber, scorched into steel. This was hours before the treaty. You just didn't know it. Council intelligence discovered something else. Buried in human diplomatic records was a system. Clause no. It was never mentioned during negotiations, but deep in the digital chain signed by Earth, hidden in legal subtext and outdated bureaucratic languages, were codes that rerouted every clause of the treaty back to one principle. If equality is compromised, the agreement is void. The Council had underestimated how well humans understood loopholes, and more dangerously, how well they weaponized them. Earth's military hadn't moved. No grand armadas launched. No formal declarations made. Instead, human freighters began arriving in systems previously off-limits. Human AIs showed up in black market data cores. Weapons long thought banned. Phase disruptors, entropy mines, and neural storms suddenly reappeared on fringe worlds, all trace of human tech. Earth wasn't waging war. It was removing limits. In private council meetings, fear turned into rage. They are mocking us. They defy the very structure of the galaxy. One elder species, the Graxon, had seen this before. They whispered among their kind. We gave them a leash, but forgot they were wolves. And then came the second message, broadcast in the same calm tone, this time from a human diplomat once known for her peaceful speeches. She stood alone in a white chamber. Behind her, the shredded treaty hung in silence. You offered us chains wrapped in silk. You called it order. We call it threat. You signed us into peace while plotting submission. So let this be known. Earth is not your subject. We are not your children. And if you think tearing paper is violent, wait until you see what happens when we get serious. Galactic networks collapsed under the weight of the story. Aliens who once dismissed humanity as unstable, emotional, primitive, suddenly remembered their wars, their colonization, their extinction-level weapons, their AI rebellions, and how Earth had survived all of it. Now the galaxy knew humans had played along, smiling, listening, recording, and when the time came, they tore up the script. The Council had never fought a war it couldn't control. That changed with Earth. The first system they tried to discipline was a backwater border colony named Farron's Reach, a mining world with no official military presence. The Council deployed a cruiser squadron. No warning, no diplomacy. They arrived to find the colony empty, no resistance, no people, no trace, except for a single relay beacon floating in orbit. When activated, it played a short-loop message. You're too slow. The Council laughed until their ships exploded. No energy readings, no projectiles, just failure. Instantaneous, total failure. Autopsy reports, those that could be made, showed fusion cores inverted themselves, reactors imploded, and command AIs rewrote their own operating logic before erasing all data. That's when the Council understood Earth had deployed something new, something that didn't exist on any known technological tier. Next came Port Halvan, a massive trade hub controlled by a Council ally, rich in both commerce and communications arrays. Earth had diplomatic presence there for over a decade. The Council assumed they'd cut ties. But when they tried to seize the port, their fleets encountered resistance, not from Earth, but from local populations. Humans have spent years embedding themselves into the infrastructure, the economy, the defense systems, not as conquerors, as trusted partners. The moment the Council moved in, the people turned on them. The port locked itself down, shut out all Council overrides, and activated a human companionship clause buried in the trade agreement. Translated, it meant, if you threaten Earth, you threaten all of us. The entire planet declared independence. This happened everywhere. Worlds the Council thought loyal were now undecided. Allies were cautious. Trade slowed. Fleets hesitated. No one wanted to be next. Because humanity hadn't built an empire, they'd built relationships. And the galaxy realized it far too late. The Council convened emergency hearings. The Corellans called for sanctions. The Cyros demanded an immediate show of force. The Zarvek whispered the most dangerous words yet. We have to neutralize Earth permanently. But no one volunteered to be first. Because while Earth hadn't struck directly yet, everyone knew they were preparing something final. The torn treaty had been the opening bell. What came next would be decisive. And then Earth acted, not with an invasion, with an invitation. The Council's central broadcasting hub, untouchable by design, was hijacked. Every screen, every hologram, every neural uplink displayed the same image. A long table. At its center sat a single human, female, unarmed, smiling. She spoke one line. Let's finish this face-to-face. No one expected Earth to host the next summit. No one expected the Council to accept. And yet, they came. They had to, because every option left was worse than talking. So they arrived, 23 species, flanked by honor guards and warships parked just outside Earth's orbital perimeter. They didn't land in cities. They were taken to a single complex, deep beneath Antarctica, where the cold never melted. There, the Terran diplomatic corps waited. No weapons, No AI guards, just humans, and the treaty they had torn, taped back together, but never signed again. The lead council delegate, a scaled diplomat named Verith Ka, opened with fury. You broke the treaty. The human nodded. We read it. You shamed the council. You wrote our shame into the fine print. You endangered peace. No, the human said softly. You disguise obedience as peace. That ends now. Silence, the kind that hurts to hear. Then Verith hissed. If you won't submit, then Earth will face extinction. The human leaned forward, still smiling. You're welcome to try. Just know, whatever you do to us, we'll do worse. And faster. You can destroy a planet. We can erase legacies. You want a war? We won't fight it the way you expect. We'll fight it the way that hurts. Your memory of the summit will outlive your species. Council members stirred uncomfortably because something was happening. Every delegate's neural implant began feeding false signals. Their senses scrambled. Their aids collapsed. Translation filters twisted. Even time felt wrong. The human stood, placed a device on the table. This is what war with Earth looks like. You're in our house now. It lasted 15 seconds. Then everything reset. The implants cleared. Aid stood up. Blood rushed back into limbs. The human smiled again, softer this time. You thought you were dealing with the humans of 100 years ago. Soldiers, colonists, grunts. But we evolved. We stopped building bigger guns. The council reconvened after the summit in a state of collective denial. Half believed the Earth meeting had been a bluff. The other half believed it hadn't been nearly the full truth. They're provoking us, said the Graxon War Minister. They're warning us, countered the Corellan archivist. That was restraint. But they still debated like humans weren't listening. They were. Earth's diplomatic corps had already infiltrated most of the Council's comms through passive listening networks, authorized decades earlier for peaceful coordination. Now those same pathways whispered back to Earth everything the Council feared. And Earth listened. They let the Council dig their own grave. The final straw came on Cycle 12, when a faction of the Council, quietly without consensus, authorized a limited cleansing strike on Earth's orbital defense satellites. The attack was swift, surgical, and completely failed, because the satellites they targeted didn't exist anymore. Earth had deorbited them months ago. In their place, a new network, cloaked, quantum-shifted, decentralized, invisible to all sensors. And when the Council ships attacked, nothing happened. At first, then their weapons turned off, their navigational arrays reversed. Their AIs locked them in place and projected one message across every screen. We noticed you tore up the second draft. Then the message paused, rewound, and added, we were going to be polite. The ships were returned unharmed, but stripped, not just of weapons, of memory. No data, no logs, no communications. Like the attack had never happened. Only the crews remained, shaken, whispering about things that couldn't be explained. One commander went mad trying to remember what happened in those 15 minutes. The humans never responded publicly. They didn't have to. The Council knew. That week, Earth began expanding, not with weapons, with arrivals. Human ships entered Council space freely. Not military vessels, science ships, humanitarian fleets, mobile medical bays, terraformers. And not to invade, to offer help. Even species that had supported the Council were approached with open hands. We remember how you treated us, the human said. But we're not here for revenge. We're here to make sure no one else ever gets treated that way again. They called it the human doctrine, a new model, cooperation but on equal terms. No Council oversight, no hidden clauses, only action, and it spread like wildfire because, while the Council issued threats, Earth was doing things. On the scorched moons of Varnex, human engineers rebuilt collapsed biospheres. On plague worlds the Council had abandoned, human doctors landed with cures the galaxy had never seen. On forgotten mining colonies, human AI constructed cities from dust and days. And everywhere they went, they left behind a single plaque. You are not alone. The Council tried to discredit them, declared Earth's assistance unauthorized interference, filed sanctions, ordered embargoes. None of it stuck, because people were choosing Earth. Again and again, even Council species were defecting, trading old promises for new hope. It wasn't just political. It was personal. The real collapse began when the Voxari, the very species that authored the original treaty, declared neutrality. They cited philosophical divergence. Translation? They saw who was winning, and they didn't want to be on the wrong side of history. The moment they stepped back, or stepped forward, they didn't conquer Council territory. They were invited in, system by system, world by world, until one day, the Council held its first meeting where Earth had majority support, and the humans didn't gloat. They didn't demand surrender. They offered a final draft of the treaty. 1 page, no subtext, only a single line. Treat others as equals or stay out of the way. And the galaxy, battered and ashamed, signed. Years later, a new cadet asked an Earth-born historian, why did humanity wait so long before tearing the treaty? The historian smiled, because we hoped they'd take us seriously the first time. And when they didn't, he shrugged, we turned off polite mode.